Now, I looked at the Arms Export Control Act, and there's specific prohibitions and the use of U.S. Supplied weapons, and there's conditions under which the weapons are given to any nation. And I think that Israel has not met its end of the deal by its aggressive use of weapons against Gaza.
Theoretically, following your letter to the Secretary of State, some sort of process should automatically begin. What sort of time frame are we talking about there?
Well, obviously the administration's getting ready to leave office, so a time frame must be placed here that is fairly rapid. I asked for an answer from the State Department by the end of the day. If no answer is forthcoming, there are remedies under the Constitution which relate to challenging an administration or an executive who fails to faithfully execute the laws of the land. I think that we must understand how serious this law is. If the U.S. provides any type of military assistance to any other country, the conditions of the Arms Export Control Act make it clear that when you provide that, they can be used only for defensive purposes. They cannot inflame a situation. I think the conditions in Gaza and the manner of the use of U.S. supplied weapons indicate that Israel has not abided by the Arms Export Control Act, and it is imperative that the administration make an immediate finding as to the complaint that I have filed with them.
But realistically, do you feel you have much chance of success?
Well, it's important to raise the issue, first of all, because it's obvious there are violations occurring. The success is going to depend on a couple things. First of all, on the administration's recognition that the escalation that is occurring through the use of U.S. arms is not only inflaming the situation, but it's going to make it manifestly more difficult for the incoming administration to be able to ever bring about any kind of a peace agreement. And then you have the humanitarian conditions that are being exacerbated by this aggression. This is something that must be addressed by the U.S. government. It is not sufficient to stand aside in the Security Council and deny that conditions exist which call out for immediate intervention.
Right,
and the Arms Export Control Act is the one instrument that we have to temper the illegal and aggressive use of U.S. military weaponry, which was given under the express condition that it not be used for aggression.
I've been talking to some of your Democratic colleagues in the House, and they don't seem to see any reason to complain about the Israeli offensive in Gaza. In fact, we understand Democrats are drafting a non-binding resolution in support of the Israeli offensive. Can you give us a sense of the level of discourse, the sort of discourse you're hearing on Capitol Hill?
Well, you know, certainly there's supporters of Israel on Capitol Hill who feel that at this moment Israel should receive unquestioning support from members of Congress. I understand that point of view. You know, I believe that Israel has a right to security, but you cannot at the same time say, well, Israel has a right to security and that Israel has a right to aggress, that Israel has a right to violation of the Arms Export Control Act. You know, I condemn Hamas's use of missiles or rockets against Israel, but at the same time, Israel is not justified in its conduct in Gaza.
But why is there such little discussion? Why is there such reluctance to criticize Israel after all we've been through, everyone's been through over the last few years? Is there really a belief that everything Israel does is in the strategic interest of the United States?
Well, I think there needs to be an understanding that the interest of the United States is to be able to be a partner with all those who want to pursue peace. And that means we're going to have a broader reach. We must take a more even-handed approach. We must not assume that the only path to peace is to support Israel's position on all
But given
matters.
that, though, why do so many of your colleagues in the Democratic Party, for example, not take that even-handed approach?
Well, I think that what we will see in the next few years here is a more nuanced, evolving approach, which understands that the only path to peace can be if we find sufficient partners in the Arab and Muslim world who understand that the United States is ready to be fair in its approach.
Well, no one has my unconditional support. I support the right of Israel to exist as a Jewish state. I support the right of Israel to live in peace and tranquility with its neighbors. I support a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a Israeli-Jewish state, a Palestinian-Arab state, and both states living side by side in peace and accepting the existence of the other.
So, given all that, what would it take for you to decide that Israel was using disproportionate force at the moment?
Well, I think it's very easy for people to use that word disproportionate. Quite frankly, I don't know what it means. If I was a leader of a country and had my citizens in jeopardy of missiles being fired day in and day out, thousands and thousands of them, I think that I would use whatever force it would be necessary to protect the interest of citizens.
It is a key issue. Let's see if we can get some sort of definition. I mean, right now, the figure we understand stands at 200 Palestinian children dead. Do you think that's disproportionate? 300 perhaps? I mean, at the moment we understand House Democrats are at this moment drafting a binding resolution in support of the Israeli offensive. So presumably then 200 dead children isn't disproportionate. Would 300 dead children be disproportionate?
Well, I don't know who you blame for the dead children. I mean, frankly, I would at least equally blame Hamas for building their bomb factories in civilian areas where children live.
Congressman, do you have evidence then that all these children were killed because Hamas had built bomb shelters in their vicinity?
Well, I think we have evidence pretty substantially that Israel has destroyed a lot of the facilities to make weapons of terror and bombs.
Right,
and
are you demanding evidence right now that all the civilians, and it has been mainly civilians we understand, who've been killed in market squares, apartments, food markets and so on, were targeted because Hamas assets were in the area? You're demanding that evidence because presumably otherwise these would be war crimes.
Look, unfortunately, I think that in times of war, unfortunately, innocent civilians get killed, and it's terrible.
Yes, but not with precision-guided munitions, mostly supplied by the United States. It has to be remembered. You are demanding the evidence that all of these civilians who are being killed, there's some 200 children so far, have been killed because they were amidst Hamas assets.
No.
You can get the cockpit videos, presumably. You're asking for those.
I'm demanding that Hamas stop using terrorism as a tool to have a Palestinian state. I demand that the Palestinians recognize Israel's right to exist, and that Israel recognizes the right of a Palestinian state.
But as far as the conduct of the war goes, there are no demands on Israel right now. They can just get the job done.
I don't think that you can take away the war from what has led up to the war. It was Hamas that broke the ceasefire. It was Hamas who year in and day out for the past several years has been lobbing weapons into Israel. It was Israel that left Gaza, and Hamas used that to launch a terror campaign against Israel. So I think you have to take everything in context.
Well, let's try and put some context to those statements, because we do hear them quite often, beginning with Hamas breaking the ceasefire. I'm not sure if you're aware, actually, it happened on US election night. Israel broke the ceasefire on November the 4th. They went in, they bombed a number of tunnels, they killed 4 Hamas militants in violation of the ceasefire. That was, interestingly, on election night. Perhaps you weren't aware of that. They did break the ceasefire first.
Well, I don't know that what you're saying is accurate. I think it's widely accepted that it was Hamas who broke the ceasefire.
On Capitol Hill, perhaps, but for those people who actually...
No, I think in Cairo and Amman and some of the Arab governments in Saudi Arabia, I think they understand who broke the ceasefire. But that's not the question here.
I thought you said it was. I thought we had to put it into the context of who broke the ceasefire.
No, the context is how do we reestablish peace? Peace will only be reestablished when the right of Israel to exist as a Jewish state is recognized, and when Hamas understands that it cannot use terror to achieve the Palestinian state.